The sun dipped low over Willow Creek Estates, casting that golden glow that made every McMansion look like it belonged in a real estate brochure. You know the type, perfect lawns mowed to military precision, driveways free of oil stains, and those little flags fluttering from porches like badges of suburban superiority. But beneath the veneer, Willow Creek was a pressure cooker of petty tyrannies, all thanks to the Homeowners Association. The HOA here wasn't just a set of rules, it was a religion, and its high priestess was Marge Hargrove, the ultimate Karen in pearls and a cardigan set that screamed, "I speak to the manager of life itself." Marge had clawed her way to HOA president 3 years ago, ousting the old guard with promises of elevated standards and community harmony. What that really meant was fining folks for hanging Christmas lights a day too early or painting their front doors anything bolder than beige. She patrolled the streets in her hybrid SUV, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning for infractions like a hawk spotting mice. It's for the greater good, she'd coo at meetings, her voice dripping with that faux southern charm that masked a spine of steel. Neighbors whispered about her behind closed blinds, how she'd once reported a family for excessive barbecue smoke because it clashed with her garden party's ambience. But no one dared challenge her outright. After all, she controlled the fines, the approvals, and worst of all, the rumor mill. Enter Elena Vasquez, the quiet newcomer who'd bought into Willow Creek thinking it was a fresh start after a messy divorce. Elena was the type who blended in, mid-40s, neat bob haircut, a job in compliance auditing that made her a wizard with spreadsheets and fine print. She kept her yard tidy, her recycling sorted, and her opinions to herself. But from day one, Marge had her in the crosshairs. It started small, a note about Elena's mailbox being one shade off HOA-approved taupe. Then came the passive-aggressive email about her welcome mat looking weathered. Elena fixed them without a fuss. But she noticed things others didn't, the way Marge twisted rules to favor her cronies, like letting her best friend plant exotic flowers while citing others for non-native species. Elena didn't complain. She observed. In her home office, she kept a private binder labeled Neighborhood Notes, filled with photocopies of HOA bylaws, meeting minutes, and her own annotations. It wasn't flashy, just pages of dense grids mapping out every clause, every potential violation, and the hidden penalties buried in the fine print. One section stood out, a matrix she'd built after poring over the community's governing documents. It cross-referenced safety regulations with aesthetic rules, highlighting conflicts in red ink. Square 7C, for instance, flagged a clause from the county's flood zone addendum, something about mandatory drainage disclosures that could trigger massive fines if ignored during beautification projects. It wasn't pretty, but it was Elena's insurance policy. The trouble brewed at the annual HOA board meeting, held in the community clubhouse that smelled of stale coffee and forced civility. Marge stood at the podium like a queen addressing her subjects, her PowerPoint slides beaming with photos of improved properties she'd strong-armed into compliance. Friends and neighbors, she began, her smile wide enough to swallow dissent. We're on the cusp of greatness. Our new beautification initiative will make Willow Creek the envy of the county. No more eyesores. Just pure, harmonious living. Elena sat in the back row, her binder open on her lap, pen hovering. She'd submitted a quiet suggestion via email weeks earlier. Include the drainage matrix in the presentation to avoid overlooking flood risks during the planned culvert upgrades. Marge had replied with a thumbs-up emoji and nothing more. Now, as the slides flipped, Elena's heart ticked faster. There was slide 12, Marge's vision board, glossy images of manicured medians and flower beds, but no mention of the matrix. Marge clicked past it without a glance. Wait, Elena said softly, raising her hand. Heads turned. murmurs rippling. Marge's eyes narrowed, but her smile held. Yes, dear, Elena, right? The new gal on Elm Street. The drainage clause, Elena continued. Voice steady. From the county addendum. Page 47. It needs acknowledgement in the beautification plan, or we risk a $50,000 fine per unaddressed lot. I mapped it out in the matrix I sent. Marge chuckled. A sound like tinkling glass with an edge. Oh, honey, that old thing? It looks like a crossword puzzle from hell. Scary squares and doom and gloom warnings. We're selling beauty here, not bureaucracy. Let's keep the momentum positive. She waved her laser pointer like a wand, and with a click, the slide advanced. Laughter bubbled from her allies in the front row, Bob from finance, chuckling to impress, Susan from the social committee, smirking behind her latte. Elena felt the room's eyes on her, judging. She didn't argue, didn't raise her voice. Instead, she closed her binder slowly, tracing a finger over the red square in her personal copy. By the way, if you're hooked on this HOA nightmare so far, smash that like button and subscribe. 97% of viewers dip out without it. And it keeps these tales of suburban sabotage coming. Back to the drama. Marge powered on, deleting Elena's input from the collective memory as easily as she'd skipped the slide. We don't need walls of text killing the vibe, she declared. This is about community pride. Applause followed, scattered but enough to drown out doubt. Elena sat silent, but inside, something shifted, not rage, but resolve. She'd seen Marge's type in her audits, the ones who skimmed reports, dismissed details as overkill, and chased optics over outcomes. That night, Elena opened her laptop, exporting the full matrix to a private drive. She time-stamped it, added notes on the meeting deletion, and blind copied herself on an email to the county compliance office. Not reporting yet, just archiving. The red square pulsed in her mind like a warning light. Clause 7C tied directly to flood disclosures, activated by any landscape alteration without prior mapping. Ignored, it could flood basements, erode foundations, and slap the HOA with fines that'd bankrupt half the neighborhood. But Marge saw it as ugly art, a vibe killer in her quest for curb appeal. Days blurred into weeks as Marge's beautification blitz kicked off. Trucks rumbled in, digging up medians for elegant fountains and tasteful shrubbery. Neighbors nodded approval, fearing fines if they didn't. Elena watched from her porch, noting every change in her binder. Marge's SUV became a fixture, her voice echoing. That's not HOA-approved mulch, is it? TSK. TSK. Elena endured a personal visit when Marge spotted her unauthorized bird feeder. It attracts pests. Dear, we can't have that ruining our pristine image. Elena smiled thinly. Noted. I'll review the bylaws. Marge patted her arm condescendingly. Good girl. We all want what's best, right? Inside, Elena updated her logs. Another infraction logged. Another thread in the web. She didn't fight. She documented. The matrix grew, red squares multiplying as Marge's projects ignored subtle risks, like rerouting drainage without permits. Elena sent a polite follow-up email to the board. Reminder on Clause 7C. Suggest including in updates. Marge's reply? A group message praising the team's enthusiasm and burying Elena's concern in emojis. The chasm widened. Marge hosted vision sessions where she'd mock nitpickers who clung to outdated rules. Whispers spread. Elena was the troublemaker, the one obsessed with doom. A neighbor sidled up at the mailbox. Why rock the boat? Marge means well. Elena just nodded, but her binder thickened. She printed the matrix anew, filing it under garden plans in her drawer. No one asked why she carried a second keychain flash drive or why she photographed every dig site. They assumed she was harmless. a background hum in Marge's symphony of control. But the clause didn't care about vibes. It waited, buried in county code, ready to flood the facade Marge had built. And Elena? She was the dam, quiet but unyielding, watching the water rise. Marge Hargrove glided through Willow Creek like a shark in pastel waters. Her HOA presidency a throne of nitpicks and nods. She transformed the neighborhood newsletter into her personal propaganda rag, filled with before and after photos of corrected yards and gushing editorials on elevated living. But Elena saw the cracks, the way Marge waived fines for her bridge club buddies while hammering others for similar violations. It was classic Cham Beam, a woman preaching community while wielding rules like a weapon to settle scores. The variable hit at the next board meeting. A stuffy affair in the clubhouse where folding chairs creaked under the weight of unspoken grudges. Marge unveiled her Master Plan 2.0, a glossy packet promising seamless enhancements like repaving cul-de-sacs and installing uniform lighting. Elena flipped through her copy, pinned marking discrepancies. There, on page 8, no mention of drainage rerouting risks. Her matrix had flagged it red. Clause 7C demanded disclosures for any earth moving, or phase county audits and fines that could top $50,000 per affected property. As Marge beamed, Elena raised her hand again. The plan overlooks the flood addendum. We need to map the drainage impacts. Marge's laugh tinkled, sharp as broken china. Elena, sweetie, that grid of yours looks like a bad abstract painting. Red blobs screaming disaster. We're streamlining for harmony, not horror stories. She flipped the packet dismissively. Let's vote to approve and keep things positive. The board murmured agreement, eyes avoiding Elena. Bob chuckled. No need for doom maps. Susan smirked. It's like a haunted spreadsheet. Spooky. Elena didn't push. She noted the time, 7:42 p.m., and archived the exchange on her drive. Marge's deletion wasn't just oversight. It was deliberate, erasing the one visual cue that could save the neighborhood from literal flooding. But why argue when evidence spoke louder? Post-meeting, Marge cornered Elena by the coffee urn. I appreciate your diligence, but we can't let every little clause kill the buzz. Optics matter. Dear, Elena met her gaze evenly. Optics won't hold back water if the drains fail. Marge's smile tightened. Trust me, I've got this. Now, about that bird feeder. She trailed off with a wink that screamed threat. Elena went home, exporting the full plan with her annotations. She blind copied the county liaison, not escalating, just timestamping. The red square loomed in her mind, a quiet bomb in Marge's beautification bubble. As projects ramped up, the neighborhood buzzed with forced excitement. Diggers tore up lawns. Fountains gurgled pretentiously, and Marge posted selfies with workers, captioning progress in paradise. But whispers grew, basements dampening, yards eroding. A storm hit mid-construction, turning medians to mudslides. Neighbors grumbled, but Marge spun it. Minor hiccups. Beauty takes sacrifice. Elena documented it all. Photos of pooling water. Emails ignored. She sent another reminder. Clause 7C active. Suggest audit prep. Marge replied publicly. Thanks for the input. We're all good. Focus on the positives. The satire deepened. Marge, queen of rules, bending them for her vision while labeling dissenters negative Nancys. At a block party, she toasted to a flawless Willow Creek. No more ugly surprises. Laughter followed, but Elena sipped her punch, noting how Marge's cronies avoided the soggy corners. One evening, a neighbor knocked. My basement's flooding. Marge says it's my fault. Wrong gutters. But wasn't there some rule about this? Elena nodded. There is. Clause 7C. The neighbor frowned. She never mentioned it. That's the point, Elena said softly. She didn't elaborate, but added the chat to her logs. Marge's overreach escalated. She fined Elena for non-compliant window treatments, curtains a tad too vibrant. "We need uniformity," the notice read. Elena paid without protest, but photographed the fine, cross-referencing it with Marge's own special exemption for her gaudy porch lights. The pressure built like storm clouds. Marge announced a grand reveal meeting with county officials invited to admire the upgrades. Elena prepared quietly, printing her matrix afresh, filing it under recipes. No one suspected the boring auditor was weaving a net. But the clause waited, impartial as gravity. Marge's deletions had stripped the plan bare, leaving the neighborhood exposed. Elena watched Marge parade, her pearls gleaming, oblivious to the rising tide. The satire bit deeper. In a world obsessed with perfect lawns, Marge embodied the hypocrisy, preaching rules while rewriting them, all for her ego's curb appeal. Neighbors started side-eyeing her, small cracks in the facade. Elena endured a public shaming at the next gathering. Marge, mic in hand. Some folks cling to old fears, but we're moving forward. Eyes darted to Elena, who smiled faintly, pen scratching another note. Inside, the daunting grew. Marge thought silence was submission. She was wrong. The red square wasn't erased. It lived in Elena's archives, ready to flood the lies. As rains persisted, more complaints trickled in. Marge dismissed them, build character, but Elena's binder swelled. Emails, photos, timestamps. She emailed the board anonymously via a throwaway. Review clause 7C before county visit. Marge's response? A newsletter blast. Ignore alarmists. Our vision is waterproof. The irony stung, a Karen drowning in her own delusions. While Elena, the nitpicker, held the life raft. The escalation simmered like a pot left on low, bubbles rising unnoticed until the boil over. Marge's beautification barreled ahead, fountains spraying triumphantly, while hidden drains clogged under unchecked dirt. Neighbors whispered more boldly now, driveway, cracks widening, sump pumps whining over time. But Marge? She doubled down. Her HOA emails a barrage of exciting updates laced with veiled threats. Non-participation may incur review fees. Elena became the ghost in the machine, her observation sharpening. She mapped erosion patterns on her matrix, red squares blooming like warnings ignored. One night, after a downpour turned her street to a shallow river, she photographed the mess, noting how Marge's elegant medians diverted water straight to low-lying lots. Clause 7C screamed from the page. Mandatory disclosures or face county intervention. Fines stacking like dominoes. At an emergency weather chat, Marge hosted online. Elena chimed in. This ties to the undisclosed drainage risks. We should pause and map it. Marge's video feed froze momentarily, perhaps her smile cracking. Elena, always the cautious one, but we've consulted experts. It's all under control. No need for scary grids derailing our progress. Chat reactions poured in. Thumbs ups from cronies. Eye rolls from anonymized users. Someone typed, "Why hide the risks?" Marge muted them swiftly. Positive vibes only. Folks, Elena screenshotted it all, adding to her digital vault. The cham beam deepened. Marge, arbiter of rules, muting truth to preserve her echo chamber. It was laughable in its absurdity, the kind of dark humor that made you clench your fists while smirking. The neighborhood fractured subtly. A petition circulated quietly, questioning the project's safety. Marge quashed it with fines for unauthorized signage. Elena signed anonymously, then logged the retaliation. Personal jabs intensified. Marge dropped by Elena's house unannounced. Clipboard gleaming. Your hedges are uneven. Violation notice incoming. We can't have asymmetry tarnishing the block. Elena arched a brow. like the uneven drainage flooding my garage. Marge waved it off. Mother Nature's quirk. Fix the hedges, dear, or face the fees. Elena complied outwardly, trimming while mentally tallying. Another abuse of power. Cross-reference to HOA ethics clauses. She didn't snap back. She archived. The Donnan built in stolen moments. Elena poring over county records at midnight, discovering Marge had skipped permit filings to expedite beauty. The red square evolved from warning to weapon. Social satire peaked at the annual picnic, where Marge paraded in a sun hat, toasting flawless execution. Mud puddles dotted the field, but she ignored them. To harmony, she cheered. A neighbor slipped on wet grass, spraining an ankle. Marge's response? Clumsy accidents happen. Sign the waiver next time. Elena helped the injured party, whispering, documented. Clause 7C covers this. Word spread like ripples. More eyes turned suspicious. Marge's allies wavered. Bob confided privately. She's pushing too hard. But Marge pressed on, announcing the county showcase. Officials will see our perfection. Elena prepared her counter, a zipped file of evidence, ready for blind send. The high-wire act teetered. Marge's empire of optics versus Elena's fortress of facts. Tensions boiled in private exchanges. Marge emailed Elena. Your constant nitpicking disrupts unity. Consider stepping back. Elena's reply. Unity requires transparency. See attached matrix excerpt. Marge ignored it, but Elena saved the snub. The neighborhood pulsed with unease. Lawns pristine. Basement soggy. Residents simmering. Marge embodied the black comedy. A Karen so blinded by her crown, she couldn't see the flood at her feet. As the showcase neared, Elena's patience crystallized. She printed the full matrix, tucking it into a folder labeled Potluck Ideas. No fanfare, just quiet ammunition. Marge hosted a prep rally, her voice soaring, we'll dazzle them. No doom, just a light. Elena attended, silent in the back, watching Marge delete questions from the chat log. The irony burned, erasing digital traces like she'd erased the clause. But deletions don't vanish, they echo. Elena's archives hummed, the red square a beacon in the gathering storm. The bubble strained, ready to burst. Neighbors confided more. Leaks, cracks, fears. Elena nodded, advising, keep records. Marge's facade cracked in a board call. If anyone undermines this, there'll be consequences. Elena's pulse quickened, not fear, but anticipation. The Leo tang peaked, the air thick with impending reckoning. The county showcase dawned crisp and mocking, the sun glinting off Marge's freshly paved medians like a spotlight on a stage set for farce. Officials arrived in sedans, clipboards at the ready, ties knotted with bureaucratic precision. Marge greeted them like royalty, her pearls catching the light. Voice honeyed, welcome to Willow Creek, where standards shine. Elena lingered at the edge, binder under arm, observing as Marge led the tour. Fountains burbled, shrubs stood sentinel, but subtle signs betrayed, damp patches underfoot, erosion nibbling at curbs. The group paused at a cul-de-sac, where Marge gushed, our seamless upgrades, beauty without burden. A senior inspector, gray-haired and sharp-eyed like a hawk, frowned at great. Drainage rerouted here, permits filed. Marge's smile held. All handled expertly, minor tweaks for aesthetics. The inspector tapped his tablet. County addendum requires disclosures for flood zones. Clause 7C, acknowledged in plans. The air thickened. Marge blinked. Oh, that's legacy stuff. We modernized for efficiency. Modernized? The inspector's voice cut like wire. Show the mapping. Marge gestured vaguely. It's embedded in our vision packet. No need for scary details. Heads turned. Murmurs rising. A junior official pulled up records. No filings on record. This could trigger audits. Marge's knuckles whitened on her clipboard. I'm sure it's resolved, perhaps an oversight in drafts. Elena stepped forward subtly, pulling her phone. She opened the zipped file, attaching the matrix and clause excerpts. No drama, just a quick email to the lead inspector, blind copied to the board. Subject: Willow Creek drainage reference. The inspector checked his inbox mid-conversation, eyes narrowing as he zoomed on the red square. This matrix flags clause 7C explicitly deleted from final plans. Marge's gaze snapped to Elena. Venomous. That was an old version, confusing, unnecessary. The inspector didn't flinch. Unnecessary? It's mandatory. Without acknowledgement. Fines start at $50,000 per lot. Plus remediation. Gasps rippled. Neighbors clustered. Phones out. Bob muttered. She said it was fine. Marge stammered. We assumed it was non-material. Optics for the showcase. Assumptions don't hold water, the inspector deadpanned, tapping the screen. Literally. Who authorized the deletion? Silence crashed. Marge's allies shifted feet. Susan whispered. Did she know? The lead official steepled fingers. Explain how a critical safety clause vanished. And no one flagged it. Marge's voice edged higher. It was consensus streamlining. Elena's evidence glowed on the tablet now. Passed around. The red squares screamed truth, timestamps, deletions, ignored emails. Who silenced this? The inspector pressed. Eyes scanning. Fingers pointed subtly toward Marge. A neighbor spoke up. She called it scary art. Laughed it off. Marge whirled. Elena pushed it, but it killed the vibe. The inspector held up a hand. And you ignored her? That's not leadership. That's liability. The bung no hit. Marge's face crumpled. Pearl's no shield. Officials scribbled notes. One pulling a folder marked audit trigger. Neighbors erupted in whispers. She endangered us. For pretty fountains? Marge tried spin. I believed it was resolved. Happy to clarify. But the inspector shut it down. Clarify in court. Fines pending. Elena stood still. No gloat. Just the cool rush of vindication. The red square had spoken, flooding Marge's empire with facts. The group dispersed amid chaos, phones buzzing, officials departing with stern nods. Marge cornered Elena. You set me up. Elena met her eyes. You deleted the warning. I just kept the record. Marge huffed away, but the damage cascaded. Board members huddled. Murmurs of resignation floating. The high trio crested. Marge's tyranny exposed. Her harmony a soaked ruin. Neighbors cheered inwardly. The dark humor landing. Marge, Queen of Petty, dethroned by her own deletions. In the aftermath, the county's audit report dropped like a hushed thunderclap. No fanfare. Just a PDF email to the board. Renamed Willow Creek Findings. Immediate action. 10 pages of dry prose. But page 5 was the dagger. Clause 7C deleted from beautification plans on meeting date. 7:42 p.m. Resident Elena Vasquez flagged in original matrix with red priority. Deletion unauthorized. No override. Clause active per county addendum. Risking floods and $50,000 plus fines per property. Elena didn't print it for show, didn't forward with triumph. She logged it in her binder. Tagging validated, risk averted. The fines were narrowly dodged because her email hit the inspector's inbox 28 minutes before the showcase tour ended. 28 minutes between Marge's gloss and the truth's tide. No thanks came from aboard. No parade. But the silence shifted, waited, respectful. Marge was transitioned out. Her presidency dissolved in a quiet vote. No farewell potluck. Just her SUV vanishing from patrols. Whispers called it restructuring. The rest knew. Karma in khakis. Elena got a subtle nod. A new board seat offered. for someone steady under storm. Not a crown, but a bigger map. More squares to safeguard. She accepted. Same quiet demeanor. Binder in tow. On her first meeting, a sticky note appeared. Keep this scary art. No name. Just block letters. Elena smoothed it beside her notes. A talisman. The neighborhood exhaled. Lawns stay tidy. But rules loosened. Fines fairer. Voices heard. Neighbors waved genuinely now, sharing stories of Marge's overreach with rueful laughs. She thought vibes trump floods. One chuckled. Elena watched from her porch. Bird feeder reinstated. The satire lingered. In suburbia's quest for perfection, Karens rise and fall. But facts endure like unyielding roots. The red squares needed no applause. They just needed to be seen, and in the end, they drowned the illusions.